Okay. Homework answers. Today's lesson. This is out of 3.8 in your textbook. It's important to remember the slope formula. This is an algebra concept. Remember that slope is m. And you probably learned rise over run. This will work if you have a graph. But the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 will work all of the time. You can always use this to find your slope. The slope-intercept form of equation is y equals mx plus b, where m represents the slope of the line and b represents the y-intercept. If you have parallel lines, your slopes will be the same or equal. In other words, if the slope of one line is a over b, the slope of the line that's parallel to that line would also be a over b. With perpendicular lines, the slopes will be negative reciprocals of each other. And remember that perpendicular has a symbol as well. It's kind of an upside down T. So the slope of one line is a over b. To be perpendicular to it, the slope of the other line would have to be a negative b over a. Vertical lines are lines that go up and down. They would have an equation of x equals some number. Horizontal lines would go left and right. That have an equation of y equals some number. And vertical lines and horizontal lines are always perpendicular to each other. It's kind of an exception that's written in because the negative reciprocal rule doesn't work. The slope of a horizontal line is 0. To be perpendicular says you'd have to use the negative reciprocal of that. So if this was over an implied 1, this would be a negative 1 divided by 0, which is undefined, and we have no way to work that out. Which is why we learn this exception, that vertical and horizontal lines are perpendicular versus knowing they're negative reciprocal of each other. Okay. We're going to find the slope of segment AB here. And I really would recommend that if you don't know the slope formula, that every time you use it, that you write it down. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, because it is a formula that you have to memorize. Label your ordered pair, x1, y1, x2, y2. And plug the numbers into the formula in their corresponding spot. y2 is 2, minus y1 is a negative 4. x2 is negative 1, minus x1 is a negative 4. Both of my minus negatives become plus positives. 2 plus 4 is 6. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. And 6 over 3 would simplify to 2. It says find a slope of a line that's parallel. Well, the slope of the line that's parallel would have the same slope, so it would be a 2. It also says find the slope that's perpendicular to. If it's perpendicular to it, this one was positive. This one has to be negative. And the reciprocal of 2, remember 2 is over an implied 1. So the reciprocal would be 1 over 2. So the slope of the line perpendicular to it is a negative 1/2. Now, the reason they put the graph on the second example here is I'm sure they'd like me to figure the rise and the run. But I can tell you I've seen so many students make mistakes by counting rise, they're going up 6 and run over, that I really would encourage people to get used to using the formula. It works whether they give me a graph or not. All I have to do is be able to label the ordered pair. The one ordered pair is the ordered pair -4, 2. The other ordered pair is the ordered pair 0, -4. And once I list those ordered pairs, I can plug them into my equation, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, if in doubt, label them. x1, y1, x2, y2. And plug them in. y2 is a -4, minus y1 is 2. x2 is 0, minus x1, which is a -4. -4 minus 2 is a -6. My minus a negative changes to a positive. -6 over 4 would simplify to a -3/2. Again, to be parallel, the slopes have to be exactly the same, so this would be a -3/2. And to be perpendicular to it, the slopes have to be negative or opposite reciprocals, so this would be a positive 2/3. In this problem, they're asking me if segment FG and HJ are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So I have to find the slope of segment FG. I have to find the slope of segment HJ. So I'm just going to write their corresponding ordered pairs down. F is 4, 2. G is 6, -3. H is -1, 5. J is a -3, 10. Slope, y2, -3, minus y1, which is 2. x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 4. -3 minus 2 more would be a -5. 6 minus 4 is 2. So the slope of this line is a -5/2. Coming over to the slope of HJ. y2, 10, minus y1, 5, over x2, -3, minus x1, -1. 10 minus 5 is 5. Minus a negative changes to a positive. -3 plus 1 is a -2. Don't get confused because the negative here is in the numerator. The negative here is in the denominator. Remember that if there's one negative in a problem, the whole fraction itself is negative. There's only one negative in the fraction. The whole fraction is negative. So I can see that these have identical slopes, so these are parallel lines. Okay. Now I'm going to work out example 9 before I work out example 8 because it's in an easier format. In fact, I'm going to work out 9, 10, then I'm going to go back to 8. Here they're asking me again, are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Well, in order to tell that, I need slope. These are both in the form y equals mx plus b. So I should be able to identify what m is. And in this problem, it is a negative 1/3. Down here, also in this form, y equals mx plus b. And I can see that m is a negative 3. So they're asking me, are they parallel? They're not identical. Are they perpendicular? Although they are reciprocals, they're not opposite. They're both negative. So these happen to be neither parallel nor perpendicular. They would, in fact, just intersect at some point. X equals 5 is a vertical line. Y equals negative 2 is a horizontal line. X equals 5 has an undefined slope. Y equals negative 2 has a 0 slope. And these two lines, the way we talked about the exception, these two lines would be perpendicular. Now I'm going to go back to example 8. This first part is easy because it's in the right format. Y equals mx plus b. So it's easy to identify what m is. M is 1/3. The second equation is actually in standard form. Standard form says ax plus by equals c. I want to put it in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, which means I have to do everything I can to get this y by itself. To do that, I'm going to start by subtracting 2x from both sides. I now have a negative 6y equals a negative 2x minus 5. And I'm going to divide each individual term by a negative 6. I have y equals, negative divided by a negative makes a positive. 2 over 6 is 1/3. Negative divided by a negative makes a positive, and 5 over 6 is going to stay 5 over 6. So we can see the slope of this line is 1/3. And because these two slopes, in fact, are the same, these two lines would be parallel to each other. Last but not least, we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form. In other words, I'm going to write something in this form, y equals mx plus b. In order to write an equation in this form, I need two pieces of information. I need to know what m is, and I need to know what b is. They gave me this point. They gave me the ordered pair 4, negative 2. It says it's going through that. 4 and negative 2 are just an x and a y value. It says parallel to this line. This line has a slope of 1/2. So my line to be parallel to it also has to have a slope of 1/2. I still need to find whatever b is. Remember, I have this form, y equals mx plus b, but they gave me a y, so I can use substitution and replace it, negative 2. I know what m is. M is 1/2. I can use substitution and replace it. They gave me an x, and again, I can use substitution and replace it, and I can use this information to find my b. Well, if I take half of 4, I get 2. And getting b by itself, I would subtract 2 from both sides. I now have b equals a negative 4. You notice I have the two things that I need to write the equation in this form, slope-intercept form. And all I have to do is replace these two pieces of information with what I've now found. So y equals 1/2 x, and I could write plus a -4, or I certainly could say y is equal to 1/2 x minus 4, because a positive times a negative would give me a negative anyway. Y equals 1/2 x minus 4. And your assignment tonight is to do 3.8 Form G and only to do the even numbered questions.